Night pulled its black hood over Lagos, but ApexPay Tech's office lights still burned. I yawned, stretched, and pushed open the back stair door for a breath of air. What I saw startled me. A man in soaked coveralls crouched by the loading dock, hugging himself against the wind. His mop leaned uselessly beside him. His thin gloves were so torn that fingertips poked through, raw and red. The building's huge neon sign cast a harsh glow on each shiver that racked his frame. For a second, I thought he might collapse right there on the damp concrete. I set down my laptop bag, opened the foil in my hand, and let the steam of fresh jollof rise between us. "Have you eaten?" I asked. He looked up, sharp gray eyes, yet tired. He hesitated, then shook his head. I scooped half my rice into a paper bowl, handed it over, and sat on an overturned paint drum. He took the food with both hands, as if afraid it might vanish. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'm Sophie," I said softly. "I work upstairs with numbers." He managed a small smile. "I'm Chris. I clean." His voice carried an accent too polished for the battered coat he wore, but I paid it no mind. I noticed his ruined gloves, pulled a spare wool pair from my pocket, and pressed them into his palms. "No one should freeze while mopping floors," I said. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, slipping on the gloves. Steam from the shared meal curled into the night while security cameras blinked red above us. Morning came bright. At reception, I noticed the forgotten suggestion box held one envelope. A note was pinned to the board. "Our cleaners earn pennies. How can we build Africa's future ignoring those who mop our floors?" Employees murmured around it. At the stand-up, Operations Chief Victor Hale smirked as he waved the note. "Someone found a heart," he joked. The laughter died quickly. I stepped forward. "We should review cleaner wages. They work nights without health cover." Victor rolled his eyes. "Sophie, you deal with dashboards, not mops." "Numbers are numbers," I said steadily. "Payroll is just another column." The room went still. Victor dismissed me with a flick of his hand. "First item is customer metrics, cleaner pay weights." On Thursday, he called an all-hands review. I sat among engineers, sales reps, and interns, my thoughts torn between the code I had reviewed the night before and the cleaners I had greeted at dawn. Victor displayed slides titled Efficiency over Emotion. He held up the cleaner wage note again. "Important things go in reports, not bedtime stories for HR." I stood. Cleaners earn less than a third of the living wage. A small raise honors dignity without hurting growth. Some nodded. Victor smiled coldly. "Brooms don't drive revenue. We pay market rate." He clicked to a bar graph that I saw immediately was misleading. "Why no scale?" I challenged. "It's a 0.5% increase at most." Victor leaned toward me, voice low. "Go back to spreadsheets, Lane." Then louder, for everyone to hear. "No more fairy tales." I shut my notebook sharply. My heels clicked across the floor as I walked out. Behind me, weak laughter resumed, but I could feel eyes drifting toward the door I closed behind me. Later that night, while I slept, Chris Wade, though I did not yet know him by that name, disguised himself as a cleaner again. Dressed in blue coveralls, he pushed a cart to level 5, quietly cleaning. He found empty latte cups with Victor's name scrawled on them and recorded the negligence. Junior engineer Musa saw him picking up paper clips and hurried to help. "Sorry, my fault," Musa said. "Need water or tea?" Chris noted Musa's kindness. At the stairs, he helped senior cleaner Mama Nkechi carry heavy trash bags. "Young blood thinks I'm old," she teased. "Never," he replied. "Just polite." Nkechi laughed. "Keep learning. This place rewards those who notice." Nearby, Chris overheard Victor on a call, his voice full of smug confidence. "Board meets next month. I'll be COO soon. Only obstacles that analyst, Sophie. Feelings over facts never win." Chris wrote a quiet note to himself. Victor, dismissive of ethics. At 2 a.m., while mopping the hallways, he saw Linda from HR drop a stack of papers. She stepped right over them, too tired to bend down. Chris gathered them quietly, handing them back. "Cheers," she muttered, avoiding eye contact. Chris said nothing, just watched, silently collecting truths about the company he quietly owned. Storm thunder shook the windows. When I walked into the corridor, I noticed Chris had arrived earlier than usual, his cart stacked with extra rags. He looked up quickly when he saw me, almost as if he'd been caught at something. I didn't think much of it. I was carrying a small box of bread rolls I'd bought for the night shift cleaners. I spotted him by the cart and smiled. "Still using the gloves?" I asked. Every night, he said, and then he studied me with those sharp eyes. Long day? I tried to shrug it off. Victor called me naive in front of half the staff. My voice was steadier than my shoulders felt. Chris's reply was quiet, almost thoughtful. Naive can mean brave when money blinds others. I offered him one of the rolls from the box. We ate in silence together, the storm outside rattling the gutters, the warmth of the bread filling the pause between us. Later that night, I went home, unaware of what he carried in his cart or the hidden work he returned to once I left. He had a habit of noticing things most people ignored: HR behavior, performance charts, small acts of kindness or neglect. I didn't know then that he was quietly adding a column in his spreadsheets. Treats cleaners with respect? YN. Each mark, I would later learn, weighed heavily on him, as if he were holding scales of justice in his own hands. I wasn't there to see it, but I would come to hear how Victor crossed him that same night, how Chris had been waxing the lobby floor when Victor arrived, shoes polished and stride sharp, how Victor snapped at him to finish later, how Chris insisted the floor was wet, how Victor cursed when his own impatience nearly sent him slipping, and then blamed Chris for it. Chris told me later how he'd stared at the wax flake Victor flicked at him, how his blood burned, but how he'd forced calm. A CEO can't punch his own manager, he muttered with a bitterness I didn't understand until the truth came out. By 4 a.m, Chris told me he had scrubbed the wax from his coveralls in the restroom sink. He had stood before the mirror and seen two faces staring back at him, the weary cleaner with tired eyes, and behind that, the billionaire who had built ApexPay from a dorm room idea. He said he asked his reflection a question: which face will my company respect? And answered it himself: both, or we fail. That morning, I received a text from him: meet me tomorrow, 7 p.m., conference 3B, important. I typed back one word, okay. When I pressed send, I didn't yet know he had left the building through the same dock where we had first shared rice. That dawn, as cola nut sellers rolled carts up the road and the sky flushed pink, Chris Wade walked home in his coveralls, his pocket notebook heavy with truths about who we really were inside ApexPay. My face was still burning from Victor's joke when the server crashed at 10:37 p.m. I could have left it until morning, but unfinished work always sat on me like an itch. So I brewed a mug of strong cocoa, rolled up my shirt sleeves, and logged back in. By 11:45, the dashboards were rebuilt, but one source file was still missing. It sat in the archive vault behind the mailroom. I sighed, grabbed my keycard, and walked down the dim hall. Most of the lights were off. The air conditioning rattled like an empty drum. The mailroom door stood half open, yellow light spilling out. I pushed it wider and froze. The new night janitor, Chris, knelt beside his cleaning cart. The false bottom was flipped up like a trapdoor. Inside was a sleek tablet, the kind I'd only ever seen in board photos. Its screen glowed with ApexPay's highest level portal, shareholder ratios, payroll grids, camera feeds. In the corner shone the login badge, L. Wade Admin. Chris's gloved fingers tapped lines of code. Confident, fluent, no hesitation. He didn't hear me until the words slipped out of my throat, sharp and shocked. He rubbed his palms together, as if washing away grease that wasn't there. A year ago, HR reports said morale had cracks, he told me. I wanted the truth, unfiltered, so I shaved my beard, hid my glasses, and joined the night crew. My eyes narrowed. You spied on us. I studied us, he replied. There's a difference. I folded my arms. Cleaners earn peanuts while you run experiments. That's why I'm gathering proof, to change pay for good. Numbers alone don't sway some directors. Footage does. He pulled a small notebook from his coverall pocket. Pages brimmed with columns, names, dates, marks, respect or disrespect. 3 nights, he said. More to come. I'll show the board next week. I took a step forward. People are cold now, not next week. Mama Nkechi's shoes have holes. He stared at the floor. I know. His voice cracked. Give me 7 days. The board meets Wednesday. I'll push a wage bill, new contracts, everything. My anger flickered but stayed lit. And if they say no, then I fund it personally, he said. I have the money. I searched his face for a lie, found none. Still, my jaw stayed set. Promises fade. I need something solid. He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled a blank index card, and wrote, I, Chris. Wade will raise all cleaner wages by 30%, add night shift bonus, and publish new contracts within 8 days. LW. He signed, dated, slid the card across the table. I read it, lips pressed thin. Include healthcare. He added plus private health plan and initialed next to it. I folded the card, slipped it into my pocket. 7 days. I remained silent till then. After that, I speak. He nodded. Relief crossed his tired eyes. Thank you. I gave a short nod, left the room, card like a hot coal against my thigh. Down the hall, alarms beeped, a reminder that 3 a.m. backups were starting. Nothing felt routine tonight. The next evening at 7 p.m., I arrived early to 3B. He was already there, switching a slideshow on the projector, silent footage of staff interactions set to loop. Collecting more evidence? I asked. Feeding the beast, he said with a grim smile. Board wants visual proof? We'll give them a feast. He paused the slideshow on an image. Victor walking past spilled paper clips, face pinched. This clip alone didn't move one director, he explained. He said maybe Hale had back pain. So I gathered more. He clicked again. I saw myself handing gloves to him, saw Musa helping pick clips, saw Linda stepping over papers. The faces of cleaners were blurred. I looked away, uneasy to watch myself on screen. You're the only one who gave without knowing, he said softly. At 7:10, Joy from facilities knocked. She came to restock markers but found lights on. He quickly blacked the screen. Joy apologized and left, none the wiser. I exhaled. If word slips before the board meets, your plan goes up in flame. He rubbed his temple. I trust 3 people, you, my lawyer, and myself. That's the full ring. He paced, thinking aloud. Wednesday we show data, lost productivity from low morale, risk of strike, legal comparisons on living wage. Then we show footage, then propose 2 COO candidates. I froze. 2? He met my eyes. Victor and you. I took a step back. I'm no executive. You're strong in data, strong in courage. You see people invisible to others, he said. I shook my head slowly. Many will think I pushed cause for self-gain. His brow nodded. You didn't even know till tonight. They'll see. He paused. Let the staff vote, I considered. Only if cleaners vote too. He smiled at that. Exactly. We mapped risks on a whiteboard. Leak to Victor. He could rally allies. Board veto. Directors might prefer status quo. Public image. Press could spin CEO spying as deceit. I suggested counter moves. Anonymous testimonies from cleaners to the board. Quick legal draft of new contracts. Prepared by his lawyer, ready for signature. Town hall meeting where staff could ask open questions. He wrote each item down. His handwriting was neat, careful. Before we parted, I unfolded the index card pledge. If something happens to you, this goes to the media, I said. If I fail, release it, he answered. We shook hands again, firmer this time, now allies bound by paper. He pulled on his cap. Shift starts. His grin was weak. Time to mop secrets. I watched him leave, half amused, half anxious. I whispered, be safe, CEO janitor. Victor strutted through cubicles, sharing rumors of a COO pick already decided at the top. He winked at department heads. I typed code quietly, saving my energy. HR circulated an anonymous survey about workplace respect. Cleaners found printed copies in their lockers. Mama Nkechi borrowed my pen to fill hers. Wednesday, 10 a.m., the top floor smelled of polish and fear. A thick mahogany door closed behind Chris. Wade and the 9 directors of ApexPay Tech. Curtains were drawn. No aides, no assistants. Only decision makers and the soft hum of the projector. He stood at the head of the oval table. Gone were the coveralls. He wore a plain navy suit, hair still a little uneven from weeks under a cap. He placed 3 neat folders at each seat. Data, video proof, budget impact. Thank you for coming, he began, voice steady. Today is about culture, cost, and conscience. He clicked a small remote. A slide appeared. Cleaner hourly wage versus city living wage. The company's bar sat at half height. Mrs. Okafor, finance chair, frowned. We meet legal minimum, she said, but not moral minimum, he replied. He tapped again. A chart showed voluntary staff turnover overlaid with spikes in negative exit comments about respect. Disrespect is expensive, he told them. We lose talent, pay to recruit again. He opened the second folder. Inside were still images. A junior engineer sharing water with a cleaner. Victor Hale flicking sandwich crusts at a trash bin but missing. Me, crouched beside Mama Nkechi, tying a loose shoelace. He dimmed the lights and played a silent compilation. Faces were blurred, but actions clear. Chairs creaked. 2 directors shifted, uneasy. When the lights came up, he spoke plainly. A building shines by its tiles. Our cleaners polish those tiles, yet we dim their light with low pay and lower respect. He slid forward a single-page proposal. 1. 30% wage increase for cleaning staff. 2. Night shift bonus plus private health plan. 3. Quarterly respect audit. Anonymous cleaner feedback sent straight to the board. Cost impact, 0.6% of net profit. Mr. Cole, risk director, cleared his throat. Shareholders ask for lean spending. Shareholders lose more when talent quits and brand trust sinks, he answered. He placed a fourth sheet on the table. 2 candidates for chief operating officer. He spoke each name slowly. Victor Hale, highest revenue growth, lowest respect indicators. Sophie Lane, highest data accuracy, highest respect indicators. I propose an employee vote, he said. Let the people pick who will run day to day. Gasps filled the room. Board members murmured. Mr. Mensa, strategy chair, lifted a brow. An open vote? Never done. First time for everything, Chris replied. Okafor tapped her pen. If staff choose the wrong person, trust goes 2 ways. Trust them. They'll trust us. The boardroom debate dragged on for 90 minutes. I sat outside in the hall, staring at the grain of the carpet, listening to muffled voices rise and fall behind the thick mahogany door. 3 rounds of calculations, 1 argument that nearly cracked through the walls, then silence. My palms stayed damp until the door finally opened. They came out in pairs, whispering. Some looked grim, others relieved. I scanned their faces, but none gave away the tally. When Chris emerged last, carrying folders close to his chest, he exhaled so hard it seemed his ribs might cave. He met my eyes for a moment. No smile, no triumph, just the weary weight of someone who had crossed the hardest room but knew the bigger one still lay ahead. 400 workers. Years of habits. By Friday, the auditorium had changed from a demo hall to a voting ground. Folding chairs covered the floor. Everyone filled. Coders, cooks, cleaners. The cleaners sat right in front, their uniforms washed fresh for the occasion. A simple cardboard box with a slot sat on a small table by the stage. HR managers ticked off names at the entrance, handing each person a ballot with 3 boxes printed in black ink. Sick, Victor Hale. Sophie Lane. Abstain. My throat tightened when I saw my own name on the paper. Before voting, testimonies. Daniel, the dev lead, spoke first. His voice was steady, cutting through the hall. Victor cuts costs. Good. But last month he told my junior to delete his own overtime hours. That is not good. Grace from sales followed, speaking warmly about Victor driving record-breaking numbers. Balanced words, and I felt the room sway between them. Then came the cleaners. Mama Nkechi rose slowly, her knees trembling. I stood without thinking, walked to her, and offered my arm. Together we reached the front mic. The hall stilled. Her voice was thin but clear. I sweep this floor 7 years. Miss Sophie asked my name first week she worked here. She still greets me every morning. When I was sick, she bought me ginger tea. I wanted to cry, but I held still as her eyes shone. Mr. Victor? He never saw me. Maybe I'm small, but I'm here. The applause rolled over us like gentle thunder. Jonas, one of the young cleaners, spoke next. Night shift, 3 a.m., heavy boxes. Sophie helped lift. That's all. He left the mic and claps followed him out. Then it was Victor's turn. He strode to the stage, though sweat glistened on his temple despite the cold air. I respect every role, he said, but business runs on targets. Choose me, and I'll keep us number 1 in the market. He forced a smile. The applause came thin, scattered. When my turn came, my hands trembled, but I lifted them open. Targets matter, I said, voice finding strength. People matter more. I promise data discipline and respect audits. Let's prove profit and kindness can stand together. The sound that came back was louder. Claps, whistles from interns, the kind that made my eyes burn. Lines formed. Each person folded their ballot, slipped it into the box with a soft rustle. HR sealed it, carried it to a glass office at the back where 4 volunteers, HR, an engineer, a cleaner, a finance clerk, opened and counted aloud. The hall filled with whispers. Victor paced near the exit. Chris stood at the stage stairs, arms folded, unreadable. My heart pounded in my ears as minutes dragged like hours. Finally, lady from HR returned with a small envelope. He read into the mic, total ballots, 412, invalid 3. Victor Hale, 62 votes. Sophie Lane, 337 votes. Abstain, 10 votes. For a heartbeat, the room froze silent. Then sound crashed. Cheers, claps, shouts. My hands flew to my mouth as tears slipped free. The cleaners rose first, clapping, then developers, then sales. The roar carried through my chest. Victor's shoulders sagged. He glanced at Chris, who only gave a small nod, not triumph, but acceptance. Laddie declared the results would go to the board for ratification. I barely heard. Mama Nkechi was already at my side, pulling me into a hug so fierce I lost my breath, but not my joy. When Chris stepped onto the stage and lifted the mic, the hall hushed again. The noise fell away until all that remained was the echo of heartbeats, mine pounding hardest. He didn't look at me, or at Victor. He looked at the people in front, the cleaners, the coders, the managers at the back. A dull hush filled the auditorium as HR Director Lottie stepped away from the microphone. Ballots were counted. I stood chosen by an overwhelming majority. Cheers still echoed from the walls. Victor Hale lingered near the side exit, jaw tight, eyes darting for a path out. Then Chris? Wade walked back onto the low stage. Not in navy suit, not in silk tie, but in the same blue coveralls he had worn while scrubbing floors. He carried a thick binder under one arm and a folded sheet of paper in the other. He raised a hand. The room fell quiet, the sort of quiet that hums inside one's ears. Chris. Thank you for voting. Before we end, there is one more truth you all deserve. He set the binder on a table, then reached for the zipper at his throat. Slowly, without music or drama, he peeled off the coveralls foot by foot. Underneath, he wore a plain charcoal suit and a white shirt. Creased at the cuffs, evidence that the suit had been hidden under work cloth too many nights. He held the crumpled coveralls up for all to see. For the last 7 weeks, I have cleaned your stairwells, emptied your bins, and polished your floors. Some called me Chief Mop. Others barely saw me. My real name is Chris Wade, founder of ApexPay Tech. Gasps cut through the silence. A junior developer mouthed, "No way." A cleaner pressed 2 fingers to her lips. I did this to see our culture without filters. I wanted to know who treats invisible workers with dignity. Today you showed me, and yourselves, exactly that. He placed the coveralls on the table and unfolded the sheet in his hand. This is a new policy. Item 1. All cleaning staff receive a 30% wage increase, effective immediately. Item 2. Night shift bonus and private health coverage begin next payroll. Item 3. Any staff member, regardless of role, who shows harassment or gross disrespect toward another will face instant review by a new ethics council. Item 4. Quarterly respect audits will be run by an external firm. Results go straight to the board. He produced a fountain pen, signed in a single stroke, then handed the document to HR Director Lottie. Applause erupted, first from the front rows where cleaners sat, then rippling to every corner. Tears ran down Mama Nkechi's cheeks. She clapped so hard her hands stung. Chris raised his hand again, waiting for calm. We also need a chief operating officer who understands both numbers and people. You made your choice today. He motioned to me, still stunned beside the stage stairs. Sophie Lane, please step up. I climbed the 3 steps, smoothing my blazer. My eyes shone, but my hands stayed steady. Chris opened the binder. Inside lay a single metal pin, the COO badge, a small gold circle embossed with the company crest. He pinned it to my lapel. From this moment, you are Chief Operating Officer of ApexPay Tech. Your mandate, keep us profitable, keep us kind. The hall broke into cheers again, louder, richer, no single section silent. Victor took one forward step as if to object, but Chris turned with calm finality. Chris, Victor Hale. Victor straightened. You have driven revenue. That is noted, but leadership demands respect, not contempt. You will transition into a consultancy role for 6 months. Enough time to pass on technical knowledge and, I hope, learn some humility. HR will provide details. Victor's mouth tightened. He gave a curt nod, pocketed his phone, and left by the side door. Chris turned back to the audience. Chris, this company just grew up. Today is not a victory lap. It's a first step. Let's take it together. He stepped aside, and I moved to the microphone, voice soft but clear. Sophie, my mother once said a clean floor is a silent handshake. We will keep our floors clean and our hands honest. If you have ideas to make ApexPay fairer, my door is open. Really open. I looked at the cleaners. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like after midnight. The cleaners stood as one and bowed their heads. Then the whole hall rose to its feet. Developers, sales reps, cafeteria cooks, clapping in one rhythm that echoed up to the rafters. 8 o'clock that evening, when most of the staff had gone home, The top floor elevator chimed open. I stepped out beside Chris, both of us carrying large cardboard boxes. Mine felt lighter than the weight I carried inside. Yet tonight was different. Inside the boxes were brand new night shift uniforms, deep navy, each with a small gold crest stitched above the heart. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh paint. Earlier in the day, maintenance had rolled a new non-slip coat onto the floor. Now, under the fluorescent lights, the surface gleamed like calm water. Chris set his box on a low table by the service entrance. The door swung open, and 3 cleaners entered shyly. Mama Nkechi, Jonas, and a short woman I knew only as Blessing, Chris. These are yours. Better fabric, proper pockets, reflective stripes for safety. I lifted the lid of my box. And these are new work gloves, waterproof on the outside, fleece on the inside. Mama Nkechi touched the sleeve of a jacket, her eyes already wet. This cloth is thicker than my church coat. Jonas tried on the gloves, flexed his fingers, and laughed. I can feel them hugging back. Chris handed each cleaner an envelope with their updated contract. I explained the key points: wage, bonus, health cover, in plain words, watching their eyes widen as the words settled. Blessing, in awe. Sir, you really keep your promise. Chris, a promise is just a plan with a heartbeat. They gathered their uniforms carefully and returned to the locker room. Chris let out a breath as if a hidden weight was lifting. I watched him, saw at once the strain he carried and the relief that finally flickered across his shoulders. When the boxes were empty, we entered the elevator together to head back down. Only the soft hum of the motor filled the space. Chris's eyes flicked to my new badge. How does COO feel? I smiled. Like holding a very full cup, steady hands or it spills. He chuckled. We'll steady it together. Thank you for challenging me. I tilted my head toward him. Thank you for listening. The silence that followed was warm, alive. Then Chris reached for my hand. I let my fingers weave with his. The elevator slowed, but he pressed the stop button gently, just enough to hold us between floors. He stepped closer. I could hear his heartbeat, quick, uneven. Chris, may I? I nodded. His lips touched mine, soft, tentative. I answered, light at first, then certain. When we parted, we smiled at each other like conspirators who had just agreed on something wordless but binding. He released the button. The elevator carried us down, doors sliding open into the quiet lobby. We walked out side by side, hand in hand, without hurry. My first official act as COO came that Monday morning. A memo, printed on plain white paper, placed on every desk. Subject, small acts, big impact. We clean our own mugs. We learned 3 new names this week from departments we rarely visit. We place respectful feedback in the suggestion box, now polished and moved to the cafe entrance. At the bottom, I signed it simply, kindness is the easiest KPI to hit. Start now. Developers laughed when they read it, but they tried. By lunch, mugs lined the drying rack beside the sink instead of cluttering desks. Someone even added hand soap at the sink with a taped label, because clean hands code faster. At noon, I chaired the first ethics council. Around the table sat engineers, sales reps, 2 cleaners, 1 HR lead, and, surprisingly, Musa from night shift. We agreed on a rotating chairperson and set one simple rule: 1 story per person per month, no interruptions. I asked Mama Nkechi to speak first. Kechi, all I want is a place to sit when I rest. The storage room has only boxes. The next day, without memo or announcement, a wooden bench appeared in the storage room. Meanwhile, Victor Hale spent 3 weeks handing off reports and training his replacement in sales. On his final day, he asked to meet privately with Chris and me in the glass office. He entered without a tie, shoulders lower than I had ever seen. Victor, I was blind to my own footprints. He swallowed hard. Sorry. Chris nodded. Learn. That's all any of us can do. I said nothing, but in my silence I hoped he understood. Forgiveness was possible, but rebuilding trust was his work to do. Victor left us with a final handshake, a consultancy contract in hand, and a face no longer smug but thoughtful. Soon after, our recruitment ads carried a new line: living wage employer, respect audited. Applications tripled. Client calls began to circle back to what they called the janitor project. Each time, staff told them the same thing. ApexPay stood firmly by its new code. Then came the shareholders' vote to link executive bonuses partly to ethics audit scores. I held my breath as results flashed on the screen, 72% in favor. It passed. Not long after, I received a note from Mrs. Okafor, who had once doubted me. "Your numbers beat my worries." "Good work." I tucked it away in my drawer, knowing its weight. 1 month later, the suggestion box bloomed with folded pages. "Offer study vouchers for cleaners' children." Can we swap sugary snacks for fruit? Friday lunchtime seminars on budgeting. I read every note, circled 3, and set projects in motion within a week. 3 months down the line, I stood on the rooftop garden where once there had been only bare concrete. Now planter beds brimmed with spinach and tomatoes. Cleaners, coders, and sales reps tended crops side by side during breaks. Overhead, the neon ApexPay sign still blazed, but its glow fell now on a company transformed. At dusk, Chris and I leaned against the edge fence, watching the city lights spark alive. Chris funny. "I built a fintech to move money faster. Turns out slowing down to mop floors was the best investment." Me, "You found profit in people." He squeezed my hand, and I let the moment settle. Far below us, I could see Mama Nkechi guiding 2 interns as they swept the lobby. Their laughter carried upward, mingling with the clink of their brooms. The gold-striped uniforms they wore reflected the shine of the polished floor. Inside, I heard the elevator chime. The doors opened for the night shift cleaners. One carried a clipboard. The audit checklist. Lights working, benches sturdy, voices friendly. The elevator doors slid shut behind them, but this time they closed on a building remade, one where every role carried equal weight, where every mouth knew the taste of respect. The old world, where brooms had earned only scorn, was gone. In its place stood a culture built on 1 bowl of jollof rice, a pair of warm gloves, and a room full of hands that had chosen to lift instead of push down. And so my story ended, not with noise, but with the quiet, steady beat of many hearts working as one.